Well, I think the key takeaway about omni-channel is that omni-channel is no longer something in the future. Omni-channel is now. And if you're not kind of picking that up by what you're reading, what this conference really brings home is that success for retailers and suppliers in the future will be an omni-channel future. So we can no longer afford to ignore it. We can no longer afford to pretend or to wait until it comes right. You literally have to be acting now to start building on your omni-channel success potential. So I think the biggest challenges for the produce industry is probably there's two. So the first of all is that we're fresh produce, and the key word there being fresh. So that brings its own unique set of challenges as part of how we're going to bring that to life online successfully when we're seasonal, perishable, fragile with temperature sensitivity. So that's one issue. I think another interesting issue is right now the disparity of opinion between retailer and supplier. So retailer is gunning, like 3 years max they need to have it sorted. It'll start to impact their share in sales. And I see suppliers are a little bit more wait and see, like they might have dipped their toes in the water, it hasn't necessarily worked for them, and so now they're just sitting back. And that type of thought process or that attitude will set them back far more than jumping in and being proactive, being willing to fail fast, but being actually in omni-channel to learn omni-channel. You have to be in it to learn. You will never be successful if you're stepping back and waiting and seeing. So one of the challenges that we're also seeing in produce is what I'm going to call very nicely a brand gap, but it's actually more like a brand chasm, and that's the big black hole that exists between how suppliers are controlling their brands in an offline environment versus an online environment. And when you start diving into omni-channel, you start actually going online and looking at shopper feedback and looking at how brands have been brought to life, what you realize is that at the moment, omni-channel is not good for produce brands. And it's another reason why suppliers have to be actively engaged in managing their brand presence online, because it's not good for the brand if they don't. So in terms of the value from a show like this, from my perspective, and I'm fortunate that I get to go to a range of shows around the world, I work on multiple continents. I think this is the first time I've seen the omni-channel issue brought to life and addressed, particularly for the fresh produce industry. So I see this conference as very much ahead of the curve in terms of the conversations being had, the awareness that it's bringing. When you've got a retailer from America who's never met one of the larger online retailers from China and vice versa, that's showing you kind of what this conference is doing and starting to really bring together the thought leaders and the influencers who are living this conversation as we speak. So I think it's been fantastic, learned heaps, great to network and talk with people about omni-channel, because it is very new, but it's here. We are living and breathing it as we speak, whether we choose to believe that or not. It's here.